Hey everybody, it's Ashley here with No Bucket List Podcast. I am so excited about today's guest. His name is Willy Kunkle. Willy and I go way back. I've known this guy for going on 20 years now, probably.
Yeah.
We have known each other through many hair phases, life phases, ups, downs, all arounds, and I'm so excited to have him here with me today. Willy's been involved in just incredible expeditions and adventures, from traveling the world with his band, the Builders and the Butchers, and sailing around the world. Most recently involved in a world record-setting ocean cleanup, which I'm really excited to talk to you about today. Cycling around the U.S. My God, this guy has done it all. So welcome, Willy. I'm so excited for you to be here with us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It does. It's your life we're about to talk about. It does sound like a lot of fun. And even looking at you in the background, you're coming at me, or we're coming together from, it looks like you're on a giant boat in, you said, Panama City, Florida. Tell me what you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm working on a big schooner, big sailboat. I'm working as engineer, getting into some engineering projects on board. And right now everything is shut down because of COVID, so we're not moving at all. We're sitting at the dock at the moment, but we're getting ready for hopefully a winter season in the Caribbean.
Nice. What is a schooner for those listening that might not know what that even means?
A schooner is a type of sailing vessel with two masts, and the furthest aft mast is the taller one.
Nice. So when I think of schooner, I think of these really big, beautiful, old-fashioned looking ships. Is that an accurate picture of what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, it's actually a replica of a historical Gloucester fishing schooner from the 20s.
Very cool.
It went down in this big storm off the coast of Nova Scotia. And so the owner basically built a replica of that ship. And
Crazy.
It's just a private boat now.
So let's talk about sailing. You're on a boat, you're in Florida, you're docked for now because of COVID, which we'll come back to. Yeah. I know you from music, but then I know you from sailing through many courses of sailing. Tell me about your sailing adventures. Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a tough one to start. I grew up sailing on the Columbia River Island Sailing Club.
Yeah.
With like Reese and all those guys. When I was like 10, I was like 10 when my dad joined the club. So we, were sailing. I think it was like right after my parents split up, and it was like Dad decided either go to family counseling or like start sailing together. We got the membership at the club, and we just started sailing, and that was like our family time.
Did you love it right away? Was it scary? Yeah. How did it grow on you?
Yeah, I loved it. I always loved going out and, like learning how to work the lines and read the wind and, like battle the current. You're like always finding the current on the river.
Yeah.
Which I would grow later to appreciate. I hated it at the time, but like learning to sail on the Columbia River is a good spot to learn, because like you just can't sit around.
Yeah.
And wait for the wind. You always have to like battle that current. So it's a challenging place to grow up sailing.
Yeah.
And then I, got my sort of like entry level qualifications, bareboat and coastal cruising and all that. So I could take boats out on my own with friends and stuff. And then it wasn't until later that I started doing like blue ocean stuff.
So how do you go from 10 years old, your dad says you go to counseling or we go sailing, to now being on this giant schooner in Panama City, Florida, and having sailed at this point? I believe you've completed a circumnavigation. Is that right? In different stops?
Continuously, no. Like basically I have to do the Pacific.
Okay.
Once I go from like Kiribati to like Southeast Asia, that'll be all the way around in like a line, basically.
All right. So for those people who are just maybe taking their basic keelboat class, or even looking at boats out on the river being like, wow, that'd be kind of cool to be out on a boat. How do
Yeah.
you get from 10 years old taking your first class to now almost having sailed around the world?
Yeah, so that's a process of just like working bigger and bigger sort of boats, like the first, like how it happened was like I was working as an audiovisual engineer, and like, it was a pretty good job. It was actually a really good job, and it was like good company and like very comfortable, making decent money, and retirement plan and all that stuff. That was like 23 or 24 or something, and I was like,
That was going to be your path, was you
that
had this
was
idea.
that's where I sort of found myself after like doing a bunch of touring with bands, and you know trying to go to school, but I didn't really know what I was going to go to school for. Yeah, I was still a kid, and then I just like, I don't know, it just, something just didn't feel right, and so I started looking at like sailing around on sailboats. I was like, I really like doing that. Like, what does that look like on a bigger scale? And I remember I'd be like in my like desk or whatever at work and just totally bored and totally like, not engaged or whatever. Actually, well, probably shouldn't say.
We won't tell them who you worked for on here.
But it was, it was like, I just knew that there was something else out there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 24 right now, and I feel like I'm like retired already. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't feel like I was like, there's just more out there,
Yeah.
I guess. And so I was like looking around, like sailing, cruising and stuff, and found this website that was all about like cruising, like hitchhiking on people's boats.
Wow.
Where it's talking about like, there's all these cruising boats sailing around everywhere, and they need crew. They're like doing these big passages and stuff all around the world, and you can, if you put yourself at the right place at the right time, you can like just jump on as unpaid crew and like go sailing. So like I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. That's what I wanted. I didn't know this existed. I was like river sailor in Portland. I don't know. I was like, didn't know much. And so I decided I was gonna like quit my job and go sailing, but it didn't happen overnight. Like it was like from there, like that was like the plan, and then it was like, how do I make this happen? So it took like 2 years of saving up and like living below my means, and like getting rid of a lot of stuff. And then I ended up saving up a pretty good little like cruising kitty, and then quit my job. My parents are like, what are you doing? And then like all my coworkers are like, yeah, get out of here. Packed up a bag and ended up, I got this gig on a boat in Thailand. So I like packed up a bag and went to Thailand, and then from there just kept, on that boat it was like Thailand, India, Yemen, Egypt, and up to Turkey, and then from there just kept catching boats.
Wow.
Unpaid at first, but getting a lot of really good sea time. And then I joined another boat in Turkey and sailed from Turkey across the Med. So it was like Turkey, Greece, Italy, Sardinia, Spain, and then Gibraltar. And by the time I got to Gibraltar, I had enough sea time to like get my captain's license. So I went to school there for 3 months and got my license, and then started doing paid gigs after that. And then it was just, just being at the right place at the right time. And, that's a lot of what it is knowing where to be at the right time and showing up and being consistent. And I don't know.
That's incredible. Is it crazy to hear yourself talk through that and realize, like, think of yourself sitting at that computer desk that could have very easily been your career, your future. You could have gone on to another desk job, but instead you said, this sounds cool. How can I set this goal, and what steps do I need to do to make this happen? and think about it from that perspective, that you have now made it happen. You have accomplished
Right.
this goal in not that
Yeah.
many years. It's been 10 years
That was
since
about
then.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about that. Is that crazy to think about?
I think what it was, and doing some of these like bigger trips and stuff, and the more I learn is like, it's about like getting like a big picture view of it, like zoom out and get like big picture view, and then work, like that's where I want to end up, have this with whatever idea. I want to end up sailing around on big boats or whatever, or like big ocean cruising. Like that's the goal, and then working backwards from there to where you are,
Yeah.
and then cutting it up into like small pieces, and then just being really consistent. And like it's more about being consistent and being focused than it is doing something big and crazy.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
having
such
that
good advice.
plan. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm saying I think that's such good advice. It's very wise to think of it like that. If you think of like your goal is to circumnavigate the world via boat, that's a big goal. It's not undoable, but it's a scary, how are you going to make
Yeah,
that happen? But
totally.
if you think of
Kind of
it
impossible.
like, yeah, if you
Yeah.
try to break it down into little segments of obtainable goals like you've done and like you're doing, that's the best possible way to get there.
Yeah. And like when I'm doing, like that cross country cycle where I was like riding from New York to Portland, and I'd never done any long distance cycling before. I was like, okay, what are you doing now? It's the same thing. It's like if you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ride across the country on a bike. That sounds bonkers.
Yeah.
What sounds less bonkers is like, oh, in the next hour I'm gonna ride as far as I can, and then the next hour I'm gonna ride as far as I can. Then and so like every single day I'm just gonna ride as far as I can, focus on that day,
Yeah.
and take it in those little sections like that. It's like way more easily manageable.
So let's talk about this bike trip. How did you go from sitting on a sailboat in Turkey to now in New York with a bicycle and this idea that you want to ride from New York to Portland, Oregon?
Yeah, I had been thinking about it actually. I remember the second that I had the thought of like, oh, I want to ride my bike. I was in Spain, in Granada, the Alhambra. It's like big, like Islamic structure, like contemplating things, and I was sort of like making my way west back home. And I was like, man, how do I like? What do I? And I don't know. It just came to me. I was like, I want to like ride a bike. If I get to the East Coast, back to Portland, and then I ended up doing a delivery with my friend Lily. We sailed a boat from British Virgin Islands up to Bermuda, then up to Rhode Island, and she was already like a cycle tourist. Actually, that's probably where I got the idea, was from her originally. Like she was riding around all over Europe and stuff, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then yeah, so I had sort of already made this plan. She had a plan, and then we started doing this delivery together. We were talking, and we were like, oh, like we pretty much have the same idea of what we want to do. So we teamed up. It's like, oh yeah, Willy and Lily are gonna ride across the country together. It's gonna be fun, great, whatever. We land in Rhode Island. At the time, my sister Kimmy was living in New York. So we went and stayed with Kimmy in New York, and we went and bought bikes together, and we're getting ready to go. And then I got called like on another job, going through the Panama Canal, going from LA back up to Newport.
Wow.
On this really awesome boat. And it's like, Lily, like, what do I do? Like, I want to do the ride, but I want to do the Panama Canal too. She's like, just do it, man. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. So she took off on the bike ride. I went and did this sailing job through the Panama Canal, which was epic.
Yeah.
and then got back 2 months later and started riding. Um, yeah, this little like Univega, 80s Univega across the country, which was, I was very ill prepared for.
So
I,
what I hear is you're balancing, I mean, you still have work, you still have responsibilities, you still have to find a way to make money to feed yourself and get yourself
yeah,
to the next place.
yeah,
But you're also not wanting to lose these opportunities and these ideas that you're having. So how do you balance, how do you like set priorities and decide what's more important right now, or how should I manage all of this?
you mean like right now or back then or?
Kind of everything. Just, I mean, this seems to be an encapsulation of your lifestyle in general, just like getting an
Yeah,
idea in your head, seeing the value of it and going after it. But there also has to be, just like everybody else, a balance of, you have some
yeah,
responsibilities. So how do you
yeah,
juggle both how you want to live
yeah.
with how you need to live?
Right. Yeah, it's a very like intentional thing, where it's, you know, setting my life up in a way where I can live below my means, you know, where it's like I can live for like very little expense, so I can afford to like just walk away when I want to, you know. And yeah, also not being super attached to like specific outcomes,
Yeah.
you know, going into life with this intention of like, I want to do these things, I want to live like this way and like accomplish big things and like do big stuff, but like also like things change as well, and being flexible and planning to say yes to whatever comes, and being flexible and being open has gotten me a lot of places that I didn't expect to be in. And not necessarily, you know, like maybe I was going here and then this other opportunity happened and it was like, oh yeah, maybe that'd be cool too. And you know, if you're not tied to like a specific outcome, you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to be crushed or whatever,
Yeah.
then you can switch gears and go that way. But yeah, I think it's just setting myself up in life, knowing that that's sort of what I want to do, and setting it up in an intentional way that allows me to have that freedom and flexibility. Um, yeah, to sort of be okay to like go off, and actually most of the time when I go away, it's working anyway. So like these days, um, so it's, you know, as long as I make enough to like pay rent back home, which is very low.
Yeah. Does
Yeah.
any part of you dream or wish that you had a 9 to 5 in a business center somewhere, that you just went home to your little house and your dog and sat and
Um,
watched Netflix at night in your bed?
I mean, I get I get little like snippets of that. Like sometimes when I do a job, it like it's like on boats, like right now on the off season where we're just like prepping stuff. Like it's sort of like that right now, where we work a normal day during the day, and then, you know, we're off in the evenings and stuff. But I mean, it is in a different place and on a boat, and I mean, like it. I don't know how long I've stayed in one place for very long. Like maybe that's more like it is. I get like anxious if I'm in one spot for too long.
Yeah. I mean, I follow you on social media and it's everyone's comments are always like, Willy, where are you? Oh, wow. What's that? What are you doing now? What's going on? Where is this?
Yeah,
So where's
yeah,
Waldo? It's where's Willy? It's always somewhere around the world doing something
yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, I don't want to like 9 to 5 in one
That
spot.
was a big way of saying no.
Yeah, no. I mean, sometimes it's like, you know, I'd be lying if I said that sometimes I didn't think about like, oh, you know, maybe I should have like bought a house when, you know, houses were affordable in Portland, or you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. Or but then it's like, wait, what? When they were affordable when I was 22 and I had like zero money left.
Um, I'm
But
super sorry, go ahead.
no, I
I
don't
was
want to.
just thinking of your social media, and I know right before we started recording this call, we were talking about COVID and
Yeah,
everything going around. And I remember a month or two ago, you'd been out on this expedition. I know your team set a world record for open ocean plastic cleanup.
yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
excited to hear about that, how you got into that, what the experience was like, and then what surfacing from that, and hearing that there's now a virus that's taken over the world. Walk me through everything at
Yeah.
ocean cleanup.
Yeah, okay. So that was a pretty wild time there. I joined this boat. It's called the Kwai, sailing vessel Kwai, back in January. And normally it's like a sailing cargo ship. So we're moving with the sailing boat between Hawaii and the Line Islands of Kiribati and the Cook Islands in the South Pacific. So it's sort of like a sustainable shipping movement, and instead of using these massive container ships to move all of our stuff around the world that are burning, really nasty like bunker fuel and releasing all these carbon emissions. Let's try to move stuff by sail, which is it's a small movement, but it's like growing, and Kauai is one of the like leading ships out there. So, and then they started doing these ocean cleanup missions last summer. And so I was like following the ship for a while, and then finally got a call out of, like, I had turned in my resume to them, I don't know, a year earlier or something, maybe 2 years, and just never heard anything back. It's like, oh, I'm sure they got plenty of people. And then, yeah, it was like December of last year. I just got a call out of nowhere, like, hey, Willy, we need an engineer. Like, can you, drop everything and come for like a voyage? And I was like, oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, actually, at that point, my plan was to sort of like try to be at home more, actually, and like focus on music more and like, retire from boats, I guess. But, but then it was like, oh, this Kauai, like I really have wanted to like sail on this boat for a while, and then like maybe get on one of these ocean cleanup missions, because that's what I really wanted to do. So yeah, and then like a week later, I was flying out to Honolulu and met up with the ship, and then yeah, we did a couple cargo runs, and I think it went, back and forth between Hawaii and Kiribati, which is like 1,400 miles south, like directly south, almost right on the equator. Yeah, and then it was like, I think it was the first time we came back to Hawaii, we had like started hearing about coronavirus. Like I think it hit Italy already, and at that point we were allowed to go on shore still. And we have a ship's doctor and like that's in port, and we were like, what do you, Dr. West, what do you think about this like coronavirus thing? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, it's nothing, it's like no worse than the common cold or whatever. And, okay, cool. So we didn't worry about it, and we sailed back down to Kiribati, where they don't really have like internet. Well, I mean, they have internet, but it's like really slow, and
Yeah.
it's like, tiny islands in the middle of the Pacific.
How long is that 1,400-mile voyage to sail from Hawaii to Kiribati? How long did that take?
It takes about 8 days, 9 days.
Okay.
We're cruising pretty good. And yeah, so we get down there and like check in with like family and stuff, hey mom, I'm fine, that kind of thing. And then it had hit Seattle by then. So it was like in the States. And then, my mom and brother and sister, they're all up in Tacoma, and they're like, it hit Seattle and it's like spreading through there, and they're like, oh yeah, this is like a real virus, like there's nobody on the roads and stuff. Like, oh, this is kind of funny, like, and then it just sort of grew from there, and we were just getting like little, tiny streams of information through whatever social media, or we were getting updates from the port back home as well. And then by the time we got back, we did a whole run around the islands and then back to Hawaii. And by then, like everything was on lockdown. This was like February, March, I think. So we got back there and they're like, yep, we got to keep the ship totally safe. If you get off the ship, you can't get back on. Everything's on quarantine and lockdown. And, so we went back to Hawaii and anchored out in off the Big Island in Hilo Bay, and just couldn't go on shore. We were just sitting there, like looking at the beautiful island, and just can't go on. If I go on shore, I can't come back.
Yeah.
And so we basically just missed the whole thing, and then we were going to go do this ocean cleanup trip, which was scheduled for 6 weeks. So we did a bunch of prep for that, and then we left, and and then the riots, all the George Floyd thing happened when we were gone, that killing, and then the riots started, or I don't want to call them, yeah, maybe there were riots. I don't know, I wasn't there. Yeah. But that all, yeah, it was just like all this stuff that we're just hearing, not seeing any of it.
You're in the middle of the ocean.
We're in the middle of the ocean.
I want to hear about the ocean cleanup and how you got there and why you did it and what you guys accomplished. But you're in the middle of the ocean and you're just getting these tiny little particles of information about a virus, about protests, about police departments closing down, and you're in the middle of an ocean on a, how big is the boat? 100-foot boat?
140-foot boat, yeah.
And you're like, what is happening? Is this real life? Am I dreaming? What's going on?
It was bananas. Yeah. Like, some people on the ship were like, oh no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's like, everything's fine. And then other people are like, I'm never getting off the ship. Like I'm freaking out, like we had a full spectrum of.
Yeah. It sounds like an Amazon Prime movie that I watch, like 6 guys stranded at sea come home to a worldwide virus takeover.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah. But you guys made it out to do the cleanup.
Yeah, we made it out to do the cleanup. Yeah.
And what was that like? What was the mission? What was the expedition for?
Yeah. So basically it's run by this nonprofit called Ocean Voyages Institute. And they sort of have been organizing these cleanup trips for a while. So what they do is they like get in contact with small boat cruisers, cruising sailors. They've got these like GPS trackers. And if you're like on a small boat and you're sailing across the Pacific over to Hawaii, they give you one of these trackers. And if you find like these ghost nets, let's back up a little bit. There's all these like ghost nets that are floating around the Pacific.
So for people that don't know what that is, what is a ghost net? Explain that.
Yeah. So you've heard of the like Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or the the Pacific Gyre. It's like the area of all the like plastic and garbage out there. Yeah.
Basically it's the biggest collection of garbage centers between here and Hawaii, right?
Yeah. Essentially it's basically essentially circulates with the North Pacific high pressure system that goes counterclockwise, and then it all sort of collects in this area. And so a ghost net is like the big fishing net that like globs onto all these other nets and all this other plastic debris and stuff, and then just turns into this huge like mass of just like plastic net. They get huge, like as big of a like school bus or something. Some of the big ones we hold out. And so the Kauai is like a really good vessel to do this kind of mission with, is because it's a cargo ship. So we have a big cargo hold. We've got a big lifting boom crane, 3-ton crane, a bunch of lifting gear. And like, that's what we do, is like move big, heavy stuff around. So it's a real, oh shoot. Whoa. I'm sorry. Gotta decline that. Sorry about that. Oh my god. I'm technically working right now. Oh, stop it.
Is that your next adventure coming in? Someone calling you saying, Willie, we need you.
It's coming through my computer. I don't know how to. Stop sorry. I silenced my phone, but evidently
It's all right.
on the computer.
Now you find these ghost nuts. Your job is to now get them out of the
Yeah,
ocean for this.
out of the ocean onto the boat, right? And so the Kauai is really well set up because we have all this lifting gear and a big cargo hold. So they have, we have these GPS trackers that are placed on these nets floating around. And so we can follow the GPS trackers. And the idea is that it'll lead us to, the area of biggest concentration of like the nets,
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. There were a lot of trackers we followed that were on a net and there was nothing else around, or it fell off the net and it's just a tracker now. But we actually did luck out. We followed a couple of them to like these areas of like really good concentration of nets. And we had scientists on shore from University of Washington, the University of Hawaii, and I think also UCSD. And so they were like, they were following all the like movements of the like ocean currents and wind patterns and stuff. And they're sort of pointing us where they think, the like garbage might be. And so, yeah, so we just like cruise around, and we got guys up in the rig with binoculars, just like scanning the sea. And you have to like know what you're looking for, because there's a lot of it, but it's like just below the surface of the water.
Yeah.
So like you can see just the top, and then and then it's like this big massive ghost net underneath. And so yeah, so some days we wouldn't find anything. Other days we were just like hauling stuff all day long, And I wish I could show you some photos, but like these things are crazy, like huge conglomerations of plastic, and then there's all the like stuff floating on the surface as well. So there's the ghost nuts under the water, and then on top there's just random plastic garbage floating around. So we get the dinghy out and buzz around and collect all that stuff as much as we can, which is super fun.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because every day, you just wake up and like get as much garbage as you can, every day and every day and every day. And conditions have to be just right, because in order to see the stuff, it can't be too rough, so we really want like low wind, no sea state.
How long were you out there doing this for?
That trip was 7 weeks.
Just continuous at sea for 7 weeks.
7 weeks, yeah. We left Honolulu, we left Hilo Bay. I forget I don't know dates. I don't know. And then 7 weeks we came back.
And how much total did you guys collect?
It was 103 tons of stuff. Yeah. So we almost filled the entire cargo hold.
Crazy. And what do they do with the nets now that they've, and were there animals? Were there things wrapped up in them?
Yeah, a lot of fish. We got like tuna, a lot of these weird like frog fish have like legs, like these.
Oh yeah.
Have legs, evidently.
Yeah.
There was a sea turtle we pulled up. Well, a skeleton of a sea turtle, which was super sad. Just got tangled up in a net and, drowned. Yeah, some squid. Yeah, a lot of marine life, crabs.
Yeah. What do they do with all of those nets now? Do you know?
Yeah, so everything is like nothing is going into landfill, basically. So the organization commits to like 0% going into landfill. So some of it is used for like repurposed housing insulation. You can melt it down and make housing insulation, I guess. Used for energy. There's like an experimental type of fuel that it's being used for, and then it gets donated to like art projects and stuff.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, none of it is just more, it's just, now this is land garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like all being used repurposed. And
Yeah, what an incredible experience to be a part of. I know you guys set this world record. That's got to be cool, a cool
yeah,
title to have, but just what an incredible opportunity to be a part of and see the effects of your work being out there and pulling it out of the ocean.
yeah,
Um, you sailed across the ocean with my late husband, Brian,
yeah,
on this expedition. I know when you guys were sailing over, you talked about seeing all the garbage out there. So
yeah,
to
yeah,
be back and now get to be a part of this boat pulling it out of the ocean has got to be just incredible.
100%. Yeah, I remember that trip, over to Hawaii that Brian and I did. Um, it was, yeah, it was really impactful for me. Just like, you hear about the garbage patch or whatever, and
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that sucks. But then when you're sailing through it, and it's, you in a small boat have this like pretty narrow line that you're like going through, and it was like nonstop garbage the whole
Yeah.
time, and it was like, whoa, this is really bad,
Yeah.
actually. And it was a huge bummer. So
So
to be able to come back a few years later and help out it was really, really gratifying. I was really grateful to be a part of that mission.
yeah, you've
Yeah.
been a part of, to me, some really incredible experiences. I've been
Mm.
friends with you for a long time. I've kind of watched from the sidelines. Do you have a favorite or the most impactful or special thing that you've done that you just always think back on and say, I am so glad I took the opportunity to go do that?
Yeah. That the cleanup mission is like my new favorite one, I think. Uh, Before, yeah, that cycle across the states was like, that was life changing, actually. Yeah, because that one was like very, very individual. It wasn't like you're on you're on a boat with other people and you're like have this like mission together. Like that was a full on just like test of myself, sort of. And it was really fun and like free, and it was like 3 months, just like camping across the country, and really difficult. Like the first 2 weeks, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is like bonkers. Like and there was points where I was like, you're in over your head, buddy.
Well, how do you overcome that? Because that's a part of reaching any goal. You get to a point you're
Yeah,
like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is too hard. Why did
yeah.
I think I could do this? So how do you get to that point of exhaustion, I'm sure, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and still want to get to that end goal?
Yeah, it's just like keeping focused and keeping consistent, and like using that resistance, using that pain as like an opportunity to grow. Like there's like lessons that you can learn in like this sort of like suffering, or the challenges are
Yeah.
there to like make you better. The challenges are there to make you stronger, to make you smarter. Like this didn't work. What can I do that will work? Or, and so you just have to like keep going. I think it's like the main thing, and keep focused on the goal, and rest also. It's not about pushing yourself to exhaustion every day. It's pushing yourself as far as you can go, and still being able to do that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So it wasn't like full on exertion, level 10 every single day, all day long. Like that's, some lunatics can do that, I guess, but like, you have to learn to pace yourself and rest.
Yeah.
Rest is really important. And yeah, I think you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Just focused on your intention.
Absolutely. That really resonates with me. I think you're going to hit hurdles, and to be perfectly honest, like hitting that hurdle is one of the best feelings as long as you tell yourself that you can get through it. You're going to feel so much better after you've hit that hurdle and have gone over it, and getting to it and stopping. It is always worth it to push through and to see and test yourself and know you can do it. So I love it. You've got so many cool stories that I'm sure, from life on the road and the boat and what other form of transportation you've been on.
Yeah, I mean, the way you do big things is like you do a lot of really, really small things in succession, you know? Like that's,
I love that.
The hardest thing I think is like figuring out exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
I agree. So people listening to this thinking, wow, this guy's crazy. This sounds really cool. How do I get involved? Or I want to go sail, or I want to go ride my bike. What do you have? What kind of resources or advice or guidance do you have for this next wave of explorers and adventurer that wants to come up and live your life?
Oh, wow.
The show's all about living a life with no bucket list. It's about taking advantage of opportunities and thinking yes before you give yourself the chance to say no. So someone that's living that life, what do you have to say to the next person?
I think it is all about like saying yes, you know, and having these ideas and like just running with them, you know, like that's like so exciting, is to have this idea and to go like first be like, no, that's crazy. And then, and then go, no, wait a second. What if I just, you know, let me just try it.
Yeah.
And like, I see a lot of people that are just waiting to do what they want to do till they get older, till they retire, till they have enough money or what, you know, this and that. And like, I get it, but I think you got to do it now. Like, you got to get out there and just trust your instinct, trust yourself, trust in life. Like, if you're out there throwing out good vibes, like, it's going to come back for sure. That's how it works, is if you're out there and you're like wanting to do this stuff and you're giving out this energy, like, it's going to come back. That's how the universe works, for sure. So I think, you know, you just have to go do it.
Yeah.
You just have to go make it happen. And you know, that sounds like pretty lofty. There are like practical aspects of it. Make a plan, go big picture, then, you know, work backwards. And then if you have that
all right,
then it's just all about doing this stuff, doing these small things day after day. The way you ride across the country is you ride as far as you can today. Yeah.
Cut this part. Sorry.
That's all right.
Right at the good part too.
That's okay.
So setting big picture goal, breaking it down into obtainable ones.
Yeah, obtainable goals, and then just like be super focused on those all day. It's like all about focus, you know?
Yeah.
You have like, everybody has like this much attention and energy, like a limited amount. And the more you can focus that like attention and energy on one thing, the more that thing is going to go, you know? So I think a lot of people get overwhelmed and they're like, oh, I can't do this because I'm not that, or I'm not this, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. And that is just a lie. Yeah. Like, it's not about what we don't have, because we all have everything that we need to do anything. We already have it. Yeah. You don't need anything else. If anything, it's about cutting things out and like paring it down to where you're able to focus your attention and energy, you know, on in a narrower path. I love that. People have too much going on. Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm picturing someone that's like, I want to go hike Mount Everest, but I could never do it because of these 7 reasons I could never do that. Instead of thinking I could never do it, think, to get there, I'm going to go spend the next day hiking 10 miles up this hill. And then the next day I'm going to go
do an overnight backpack trip and you're going to slowly work your way there. You're going to build these small accomplishments and build
Yeah.
up confidence to get there. And then you're going to say, it's not that big of a deal to go from what I last did to this next step. You just have to, like you just said, say, this is how I'm going to do it. Not, I can't do it because, but I'm going to do it. And this is how.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is like slowly get there. Like you have to have patience with yourself. Like this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like it's a gradual thing. You know? It's slowly. And if you're not patient with yourself, you know, and if you're like judgmental of yourself, you know, you have this negative self-talk going on, you know, that's the sort of stuff that stops us from doing big things is ourselves, you know, and it's not about like, you know, it's not about beating somebody else or like doing this about some, you know, it's not about somebody else. It's like, if you make it like about being the best version of yourself that you can be, if you're competing with yourself, like, I want to be better. I want to get better as a person, you know, that's a lot easier to like deal with than like, I want to be better than this guy. It's like, no, I want to be better than I am right now, or I was before, or, you know, I think if you like focus on that, it's a lot more attainable.
Yeah. Oh, Willy, I love you. I just love what you're doing. I think you're so great. I'm talking to you and I'm just thinking of how I can go do more and to live a more exciting life and how I can.
The same thing when I look at all this cool stuff you're doing too. Like, I need a book.
So real quick, we're in this time of COVID. I just want to hear from you, you know, as an adventurer, as an explorer.
Yeah.
It's affecting everyone in different ways worldwide, but for me and probably for you now, travel is the number one thing that this has like really affected our way of life. So talk through real quick how you're managing this worldwide virus that has overcome us and what is next for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a time of rest right now. It's like rest and regrouping and, you know, be having a hard limit on like physically, you know, where we're allowed to go legally. Like we can't even go to Canada right now as Americans. So yeah, it's a good time to like rest and like be more grounded, work on writing projects. I've been working on my music a lot, like doing my own sort of like solo stuff as well. So it's, you know, and then yeah, I think I'm using this time to rest. I mean, I'm working, but like yeah, it's okay not to like move around all the time also. It's okay to rest.
Yeah. Do you have a next big project? I know you're on this boat now and you said you guys do a lot of racing, a lot of things down there. Do you have a next expedition, a next thing coming up?
Let me think. You know, not really. I don't think so. I'm sort of, shifting gears right now, I think. Yeah. I might be transitioning into more of a like I don't know, not relaxing. I don't know how to do that, but like, you know, be at home a little bit more. But I always say that, man. Something always
then something comes up. Hey, that's this lifestyle though. Like that's the joy of it is you get to make it what you want. If you want to rest, you rest and you wait for the next call. And if it sounds like a cool opportunity, you take it.
It's like setting yourself up to be able to say yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I really like that philosophy. And that's sort of how I've like set things up, is where somebody comes and says, hey, do you want to do this weird, cool, like crazy thing? Like, you know, having the ability to say yes is, I have ideas of stuff I want to do, but it's just so hard right now because everything's shut.
Yeah. Well, if people want to find you on social media or read about what
Yeah.
you've done, how do they get a hold of you or see what you've done?
I don't know. I guess probably the Instagram is the best, or Facebook, or I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Is
I
that
don't
all
have.
right if they do? I can link to your Instagram in the
Yeah.
comments here if people want to
Yeah.
chat with
I
you
don't
about anything.
post a whole lot actually, but yeah, I'm always up for chatting and stuff.
All right.
Just
Well,
to
Willy,
keep up with like posting photos and comments and stuff, you know.
I appreciate your time today. It was so awesome
Yeah.
to talk to you. I know I always look forward to hearing what you're up to next and exchanging stories from the
Likewise.
sea or travel or whatever is next. I'm excited to hear what's going on with your music project. Maybe once you
Yeah.
settle down, that'll be our next meeting, is what
Yeah.
life looks like after all of these crazy expeditions and
Yeah.
how it is
Yeah.
settling in.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was super fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you.